Your premier Ford dealership is located here in Cabarrus County, where more than 70 years in the business lends to an incredible experience for every customer, every time. Whether you're looking for the toughness of an F-150, the spirit of a Bronco, or the versatility of an Explorer, you'll find it all at Hilbish Ford, your truck destination. Come experience the Hilbish difference in Kannapolis, just a 10-minute drive from Charlotte Motor Speedway, or get started online at HilbishFord.com.
Well, Rough Talk Ron, how's it going here today?
Man, it's good. It's glad to have a full house here today.
Definitely have a full house here.
Got a whole nother setup.
Definitely have a full house here at the historic Dayvault Dyno garage here in K-Town. Dr. Dave, what's going on with you?
Order up.
Order up?
Yep, we got a good show lined up today, and got Steve and Steve, and I'll let Ryan introduce them here in just a second. But we looking forward to a great episode today. We had a great one last week with spilling the Southern Tea. There's been great reviews on that, and they were awesome.
How's the weather looking?
The weather's looking great. Oh, Lord. It's hard to believe that yesterday was as miserable as it was, and today was as pleasant as it was.
Yeah. Yesterday we went to a car show at Quality Motors. It was a fundraiser for Bradley McDaniel, who 28-year-old had a stroke, and they raised over $6,000 for them yesterday. And Kent Shirley put it together, and great event, but it poured down for about 15 minutes. And then it cleared up. Sun came out.
It got hotter than ever.
Yeah, it was so hot. So the other unique thing we have today in our show is the Big Dave SportsCenter is coming live from the back room. He's got his some sort of jersey on. I'm not sure what kind of jersey that is he has on. Somebody said there was a big game last night and somebody won.
Oh yeah, let's go Canes. Canes finished up the Stanley Cup final, beating the Vegas Golden Knights Series 4-2. So for the first time since 2006, Canes are bringing the Stanley Cup back to North Carolina.
Well, hey David, I got one question for you. Can you give me a job interview wherever it is you work? So you went to 2 of these NHL finals games. I mean, did you mortgage a child or something like that?
Luckily, I have a brother-in-law. Shout out Drew, because I know he watches. Him and his wife, my wife's sister, they've got season tickets, and they made us a nice little deal that if we would go up and babysit the nieces so that they could go to game 1, then we could go to game 2, at a good price.
That sounds like a pretty good deal.
Absolutely. So game 2 was fabulous, getting to see those guys get their first win in the Stanley Cup final, and we got the opportunity to watch a couple other watch parties, watched a couple games from home, and so they opened up the Lenovo Center to do some watch parties for all the away games, and luckily Drew was able to get us tickets for that as well. So we drove up to Raleigh yesterday and got to be there in Lenovo to watch the Canes bring it home, and had to drive it back because we all three had to be at work this morning.
And almost lost your voice doing it.
Almost. I feel like I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing okay.
Well, hey, before we get moving too much further, Chuck, every good journalist has a follow-up question, and I know you're dying to ask me something.
How's your gout?
I knew it. Thanks to last episode, everybody in Kannapolis now knows that I have a case of gout.
Who said that?
Yeah.
That's right.
It wasn't his fault.
A medical report.
Golly. Well, I'm here to report that I thought it was gone, and then last night I took the kids
shrimp
to my favorite Japanese place, and I had nothing but steak and shrimp, and I'm hobbling again today.
Man. Damn. I told you to stick to the Whataburgers.
I know.
I'm going to get your diet straightened out.
Look, we got the phone right here. Call straight to Lee's.
Call Darlene right now.
Or the Whataburger phone.
All right. Well, hey, episode 71, you ready to get this thing rolling?
Some worthless farmland by the county line turned into hope, a dream divine. A mill rose up town was born. The whistle blew, that became our norm. They came from miles with calloused hands. Towels were made on these southern lands. A mill town strong, a legacy. Roots run deep as the old oak tree. They said we were finished, our fate at stake, but we stood as one for pity's sake. Held our ground when the whole world shook. Look at us now, just take a look. From the hard-working mill guys in the weave room to the man in black and our wonders too. This town is strong down to its core. Our future dreams, oh, the mill before. Kannapolis, you rise evermore. K-Town strong, we stand as one. From the mill to the land, look how far we've come. K-Town pride in every direction. That's the heart of the K-Town connection.
All right, guys, welcome back here. Better Than Ever, episode number 71 of the K-Town Connection. The Rough Talk Cousins with you. I'm Chris Hughes alongside my cousin, Ryan Dayvault. And Ryan, I always give you the honors. We've got two great guests. We've got one guest who's here for the third time. That's got to be some K-Town Connection record. But let's go ahead and get this thing rolling.
Three.
Yeah, so today we have two great guests. Very thankful to have both of them here. Steve Gantt and Steve Post. And they both are just unbelievably connected to the sports racing communities for many, many, many years. And Steve Post has been heard on the radio for so long. Just in conversation with him, I feel like I'm listening to a race on the radio. Always loved your voice, and you do an awesome job. So just so blessed to have you here today, Steve.
I'm blessed to be here. Really cool to be hanging out with Steve Gantt. I'm going to tell a little quick story on how we got hooked up. Okay. I was working PR for a bunch of teams back in the early 2000s, maybe even the 1990s. It was 1990s, actually. And one night I decided to go out to Concord Speedway with a little cassette recorder to make an audition tape to send to MRN. So I go out there, and we have a mutual friend, Ted Lakaitis, his name. He was a photographer, and he was working. This is when Steve was doing the Time Warner cable races out at Concord Motorsport Park. So I go out there, and I said to Ted, I said, he said, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm going to make a cassette tape and send it to MRN because that's what they told me to do. Uh-huh. Okay. He said, well, have you ever done TV? And I said, no, I've never done anything. I'm looking to do it. And he said, well, Steve and Randy and Doug and Woody, I think there's an opening here tonight. So he brought me over and introduced me to Steve. I never met Steve, never knew of Steve or anything. We got talking, and Steve, you're very Kannapolis. You're very Southern. I'm very not Kannapolis and very not Southern.
No.
I don't know that I've confirmed this, but Steve is probably, well, this fast-talking Yankee wants to come onto our show. And so what the arrangement was, Steve's back was bothering him that day. So Steve said, how about this? You'll start in the booth with us, and you'll go down and do Victory Lane, walk down the stairs and do Victory Lane, and just stay down there. I thought, great opportunity, great deal. We got started, Woody, Steve, and I, and we were hitting it off really, really well. We became instant friends within 10 minutes of broadcasting. We get like to the first break, and Wally says to me, Steve, that's what we all call him. Steve said to me, he said, how long you been doing TV? And I'm like, about 10 minutes. And he said, we're going to change the plan a little bit. He says, you get out and do Victory Lane, but hustle back up here because we want you in the booth. Yeah. We got done with that night. We had a cold couple of beers after the race, and we've been buds ever since. I'm grateful for this because as time marches on, we lose track of friends. Yes, you know how we do? We lose track of friends. Honestly, Steve is a friend that I've had this guilty conscience about where it's like, man, I need to call him. I need to call Steve. I need to do something. Last week, I get a text from Steve. He said, hey, I've got a favor. He said, pitch this, come to do the show. And here we are, and I'm catching up with my friend here and catching up with new friends, and it's really,
That's
really
awesome.
neat. So,
Yeah,
really cool.
Steve's been good to me for years and years. Done a great job for me. Opened a lot of doors for me. I remember one time you were doing some PR for Ricky Rudd.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, one of the best steaks I ever eaten in my life.
Oh, yeah.
They had a tent set up in the infield at Charlotte. Steve, I think, fed our whole crew
Yep.
out there that day.
Yep.
But Steve opened a lot of doors for us all. I remember we used to have a Bristol race party. And Steve was always at Bristol, but he would leave the Bristol race and drive to my house and
Wow.
close down the party.
Yeah,
How about that?
Yeah, Bristol was a PRN race, but we always had a deal up there with MRN with some of our people where we would do hospitality for Ford. And so I would go up in the afternoon and do hospitality for Ford. And then an hour before the race, when all the drivers went into drivers meeting and everything like that, while everyone was going into the racetrack, I would jump in the car and make it down to Kannapolis to Steve's
Wow.
house so I could be part of the watch party. And sometimes I made the end of the race, sometimes I didn't. But we always talked into the wee hours of the morning about what we saw or what we didn't see that night. And it's just been a dear, dear friendship that I just absolutely cherish. And so I love the fact that we get a chance to hang out and talk a little racing here today.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And,
Thanks,
and
Steve. Those are nice words. I'm honored to be your friend. And for the folks that don't know it, Steve's on the air. You'll see him on television every now and then. He likes to photobomb some of the interviews. But Steve does a good job. You listen to him on radio. But also, Steve's also doing the shootouts, the Legends cars.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, for 29 years, I've done the summer shootout at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it was the first talking gig I got when I moved to North Carolina. I moved down in '95 from Pennsylvania, and the summer shootout in 1998. I was able to start working at the shootout. I've been doing it. This is year number 29 we're doing it.
Wow.
And that's part like me. And a lot of times we talk about my job with MRN, but I'm also the track announcer at Charlotte for the 600 and for the, let me get this right, Bank of America 400. We no longer have the Roval race. We have the Bank of America 400. And so been very, very fortunate. Just a little kid in Pennsylvania that dreamed about talking about race cars. And here I am still talking about race cars. Really, really fortunate.
So how'd your air check turn out that night in Concord?
I ended up, what I did actually is I was able to, okay, so talk about lack of technology, okay? Lack of technology. So the race, of course, I had to wait till Wednesday because Time Warner Cable it wasn't live. So they played it back, and I had a VCR that I hit record, okay? And then I listened to the whole race. And then I took my little cassette recorder, and there was like 3 or 4 snippets where I felt like I did pretty good play-by-play with Woody and Steve, and I stood there and I got those snippets off.
Wow.
So it was via Time Warner Cable, via VCR, which might have been an illegal recording now that I think about it, via a cassette recorder over to MRN is how we got there.
Wow.
That's
It's a little watered down there.
And speaking about our technology was Lanny Nunn.
Oh my gosh,
Lanny was our
great.
technician. We was
Lanny was a great guy.
we was out at Concord doing a 5-camera shoot. We'd already set up our cameras. We did the white balances. Everything was ready to go. So before the race starts, we go grab us something to eat, a hamburger, hot dog, whatever. And then about 10 minutes before going on the air, all the cameras went black. The cameras just shut down. They went black. And said, oh my gosh, call Lanny. So they got Lanny on the radio. Said, Lanny, we got problems. We've gone black. 10 minutes before the green flag drops. So Lanny comes, walks real slow down the length of the cable lines and stops and says, Steve, go get me a bag of ice. So I take him up to the concession stand and said, I need a bag of ice for Time Warner, put it on the bill. Got a bag of ice, took it out there. He said, lay it right there. He found a spot. He said, lay it right there. So we laid the bag of ice right there on that cable. 2 minutes up, 2 minutes, the cameras were up,
You're
running.
kidding.
Everything was back in order,
Wow.
overheated.
Wow.
Yeah. Lanny was absolutely amazing.
How
I
about
mean,
that?
he really was. And you think about those. I mean, we're in a shop that started as Shade Tree Mechanics. Obviously, it evolved to what it was, the dyno shop and everything. But on the electrical side, with the engineering side, there's Shade Tree Mechanics at every radio station, every television station, and sometimes it's a bag of ice, sometimes the high-tech duct tape, sometimes it's bubble gum that hold things together, and it's amazing.
Whatever
It really
you
is.
could find.
So many fun memories. That's cool stuff. Yeah.
Well, and just as I said about this, Steve, being on the radio and hearing the races and stuff, just by talking to you, same thing about you. I mean, growing up listening to the Concord races on Metro 7 and all those TV stations that y'all ran back then, and just seeing you in the community doing so many things, hearing your voice is just it takes me right back to that, and,
Sure does.
which is pretty cool. And you've always been a great friend to me and my family, so we've always thought the world of you.
Well, I appreciate that. There's one thing about Steve Post and I, we can't make obscene phone calls because right off the get-go, I recognize that voice.
Everybody knows.
No doubt, no doubt. Steve Post, I met you here through McKenzie, the running club here in Kannapolis. So, this is obviously an all things Kannapolis, very, very local podcast that we started. But yeah, we're also, you can't have Kannapolis without having NASCAR and the tie-in to this building right here, with Ralph Earnhardt, Dale Earnhardt, all the racing history at Kannapolis or at Concord Motor Speedway and different things. And by the way, we're not supposed to say Concord on the show, but we'll let it slide today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of a faux pas. But anyway, how did you get involved in racing? Like, what was it that kind of lit that fire to kind of give you the idea to come down here to try to get a job in NASCAR, to report just kind of give us the backstory.
I was a kid. My dad and I were dirt track racing fans. We would go every Friday night, Penn Speedway in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. 5 Mile Point Speedway was our Saturday night track in Binghamton, New York. I would go all the time. And I could mimic all the announcers. Jimmy Bevins at Penn, Cal Arthur at Penn, Dusty Doyle. Up in New York State, you had Roy Sova was doing stuff, and Jack Burgess was a guy. So I could mimic all the announcers. And I always really liked that aspect of racing, just listening to the way they talked about racing. Simultaneously, as that was going on, I was a kid that had a transistor radio. And I had a transistor radio, and I would listen to baseball games. And that was back when we had the Clear Channel, not the brand Clear Channel.
Right. Yeah.
That was when we had the big blowtorch AM stations. The two that I would listen to, yes, exactly. The two I would listen to were WLW in Cincinnati. I would listen to Marty Brenneman and Joe Nuxall do Cincinnati Red games. And I would the Philly station, I don't remember the call letters, but Harry Callis and Whitey and everyone, I would listen to the games. So one Sunday afternoon, I'm flipping through my transistor radio, and I'm like, is that a race? Is that a race? And nearest I can figure, there was a station about 60 miles away, and there was one about 75 miles away, and I'm not sure which station it was, and it was real staticky. Well, of course, I'm running around with the transistor radio dancing.
I can only imagine.
Trying to hear this race. And what I did, and I'll never forget, the transistor radio was a plastic transistor radio, and I took a nail and I marked where that was on the dial, because I didn't know what frequencies were or anything else. And so occasionally I would listen and know there was a NASCAR race on, and sometimes I could get the signal, sometimes I couldn't. AM radio, you never know what you're going to get. On a clear day, I could get it. And so I did that and just loved the sport. Grew up, my dad and I, we would go all the time. We would go up there. We had a lot of midweek races and everything. And then finally, as I went to Penn State, and I just said, I've got to pursue this a little bit. And so I reached out to some folks, and actually, ironically, the very first job, and I use the term job in air quotes, the very first time I ever worked a race was at Pocono Raceway. They allowed me to volunteer to work on the media staff. And I literally, in that era, again, technology, what it was, I was passing out papers, passing out quotes, passing out scoring and everything like that. So I worked at Pocono, and then I got a job at one of my local tracks, 5 Mile Point, still wasn't announcing, and then finally got an announcing gig at the other track, the Friday night track, Penn, and chased that around and did well in Pennsylvania. That was late 80s into the early 90s. Mid-90s, it was like, I'm either going to pursue this or I'm not going to pursue this. And in 1995, I moved to North Carolina, was able to get some PR gigs, and then 2002 was able to move into an audition with MRN, and 2003 been going strong with MRN. But literally a kid dreaming of talking about racing. I have a couple of friends that say, you're the one friend we have that's living his dream, and I am, and I can promise I am enjoying it. I literally at the end of last year, I said, I don't know when I've enjoyed a year more than I did last year. And I'm just having a blast.
Wow.
Travel, I enjoy travel. I think if I did not enjoy travel, I think that would probably change things, but I enjoy travel. So long 40-some year story, but that's how we arrived here this afternoon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't see how Steve does it every time. Steve's always out of town. He's always in an airplane. And when he's not, he's got 2 great daughters. He's one of the greatest dads I know. He's a good father. But I don't know how he does it. I'm envious of what he does.
I'm blessed. I'm very blessed. That's for sure.
That's incredible.
No doubt.
That's awesome.
Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about the current state of NASCAR.
Yeah.
It's our favorite subject. We talk about it a lot. Now, I say that with a caveat. We love NASCAR, but we also love to just talk about the old NASCAR. You
Absolutely.
know, that's kind of our bread and butter where we love to kind of live at, as you can tell by the collection of old stuff we've got right here. But nonetheless, you know, I think the series is doing great. You know, there's a lot of people that may disagree with me. There's people, friends of ours that have been on this show that are not happy with the fact the races are on streaming, on Prime, and things like that. But just overall, I feel like the state of the sport is in a really good place.
Where we're at is just different.
Yes.
It's just different, okay? When we go to movie theaters now, we don't have sticky shoes, okay? When we listen to music, it's no longer on 8-tracks, okay? When we do anything in the world, it's different. And that's how I equate it with NASCAR. It's just different. And it's a challenge because I'm old school. I love the old school NASCAR stuff. My idea of a perfect day would be to sit in a grandstands with the Winston Cup headphones on, listen to Barney Hall call a race.
Yes.
The problem of it is I'm a 61-year-old guy. There's not many other people that see that as a good day. We've got phones, we've got technology, we got moving parts, we got moving pieces, we got huge corporate involvement, and so the sport has evolved. And so the way I like to describe it is different, and I do think up until the last year or so, the sport has lost its way. The leaders of the sport have acknowledged that we've lost our way, and I think they've brought it back to some degree to where it's somewhat familiar with what we're used to. And I think the sport is doing well. I just come off from a Pocono that was sold out,
Packed.
after a Michigan that was sold out, after a Nashville that was sold out, after a Charlotte that was sold out, okay? So one of the challenges I think the sport has, and this is a big bugaboo of mine, is and I understand it's expensive to go to races. The race day experience in 2026 is exceptional. The race day experience, I spent all day today, this is Monday after Pocono, I spent all day today listening, and fans that were at Pocono had a blast, okay? The race was all right. And if you don't like Denny Hamlin, you don't like Toyota, the race wasn't all right, okay? The challenge of it is how TV and how radio presents it is a challenge because this sport is so loud, it's so colorful, it's so passionate, it's so exciting, and there is no excuse. I used to do the post-race show on Sirius XM NASCAR radio, and I could tell the first second that the caller told me what they thought of the race if they were there at the racetrack, if they listened on the radio, or if they were watching on TV.
Totally different.
Yes, it really is. Totally different. Nobody that's at the racetrack is having a bad time. Hence, Charlotte, Nashville, Michigan, Pocono selling out. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge to cover the sport. It's totally different. It's, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the common car. You know,
Agreed.
But I understand when the manufacturers and when the team owners say, help us out here because we have $1 million budget on a spindle. Help us out, save us from ourselves is where a lot of that came from. And so it's a juggling act, it's a balancing act. But I think overall, I think the sport is doing all right. I think we've given up on replacing the NFL as the top sport. I think once we did that, I don't think that's a bad move. Because
That's a great analogy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nothing stays the same. Change is inevitable.
Yeah.
And you're going after a different audience.
No doubt.
The 70s and 80s and 90s that we still portray here every week is a dying thing, but you still have to, just like our city, you still have to embrace the future as well as the past.
Yeah, Kannapolis has a incredible history. I'm not as familiar, obviously, as you guys are, an incredible mill history. Okay, and when you talk to old timers around here, it's such a passion, such a big part of it. Well, the reality of it is that's part of the past. What are we going to do with technology, with the research campus? What are we going to do? How are we going to go forward? And it's really no different. It's like everything in life. It's
evolution.
Cell phones versus your Whataburger phone there.
Yeah.
It's like,
people have to miss this. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And it just evolves, but no, it's fun. It's
pick up the phone and say, Ryan, I got to use the phone.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. A party line. Remember that? Yeah, the party line. Exactly. Oh, that darn Steve Gantt's on the phone talking to Woody Kane again.
You had to call the operator to make a long decision to call Concord or to call China Grove.
It's even a sensory thing too, because you got to think when you use an old rotary phone, like it vibed in your hand, and like there was something just
Yeah.
And
big
the
about it. You
rotary
can
just
feel
wouldn't
it.
roll
Yeah.
back quick enough.
Yeah, it
And you
actually
don't
was
have
a-
that just from pushing buttons.
It was like a
Push the screen
functioning
down.
device.
Yeah, it was a mechanical. There was a
Mechanical.
mechanical element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had to dial up to get online. You had to dial up the internet.
Oh, the
connection.
AOL. Remember the AOL? Remember the AOL? You had the little disc. Yeah, you had the disc you put in, and I'd go to Jackson, Michigan, and you had to find the phone number for Jackson, Michigan.
Dial
was
that.
terrible.
But that was all better. That was way better than what we have now.
was.
It was way better than what we have now. Now it's just life evolves.
You've got mail. Hey, Steve Gantt, when you're on the phone all day with Woody, are y'all talking about racing or are y'all talking about barbecue?
We're pretty much barbecue. Woody was with MRN and done a lot of racing for years and years and years, and then he moved on. He's doing a local gig now on, is it WFAE, Steve?
Yeah, he's the morning news guy on WFAE.
WFAE.
Great, yeah.
But mostly we're talking about barbecue.
yeah.
We're exchanging recipes, how to cook something. We like Woody is good. We had a competition cooking team. Woody and Doug Holmes and myself.
Our Squealers.
We our Squealers, and we did some traveling, we did some cooking, and we got real good at it. We won first place in ribs before. We won first place in chicken, but Woody placed 5th or 6th in the state in brisket, and boy, that was a big deal for us
Did
because
you beat Myron Nixon?
yes, sir.
Wow, that's awesome. And you mentioned, as a young kid, and I'm going to make Steve Gantt feel good, I guess. I don't know. You talk about listening to your guys on the radio.
Yeah.
That kind of built that muscle for you to want to get involved.
Correct.
I grew up watching Randy and Steve Gantt and Woody call high school football, which really kind of drug me into this whole business that I've been in for about 30 years. So, it's the same thing, different discipline.
It really truly is, and it's fascinating. I'm very fortunate in my journey. I have 3 mentors. Okay, and when I mention their names, anyone that follows any form of racing is going to know them. Ken Squier, Barney Hall, and Eli Gold. Those 3 guys were so good to me, and those were the 3 kids of my youth that I listened to. I would rush home to catch from church, to catch the Daytona 500. You hear Ken Squier, talk about different people, and I think it's the same. It's the same. You talking about Chris with Steve and Randy and Woody calling football games, and I think it's just such a part of life that we have when it's a passion of ours. And you obviously took it to do a lot of calling football games and everything, and it is, and it's. Because the passion is the same passion that Steve has, the same passion that Randy has, the same passion that Woody had, that you have. We all kind of have that same passion as well.
And you mentioned, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say Steve mentioned 3 of the icons of broadcasting, but you left out Chris Economaki.
We had Chris Economaki. Chris Economaki is fascinating. We did the Charlotte Media Tour one time, and Woody Kane is a really good friend of ours. We're buddies with Woody. Woody will argue to the death on something. He will argue to the death on some things at times, and he got into it one night with Chris Economaki, and Steve and I, we had a number of beers over it. But yeah, Chris Economaki, he was part of our media tour stuff, and we just had a lot of laughs over the time. But I think that's what it was, whether it's sitting around having a few beers, watching Woody and Chris Economaki argue, or whatever it is, just laughing and having a good time. Because when you talk about sports and when you talk about what we do, it's such a passion. And it's just, that's what it boils down to.
They told the story.
Yes.
You could be at home on the radio anywhere you wanted to, but it was like you were there.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, it's different when you're there, TV or radio. And they told the story and made you feel like you were there.
Well, and it's obvious that you learn from them because the way you do it is the same way. But as a kid, Eli Gold is just, just incredible, an absolute incredible person to listen to call a race on a Sunday afternoon, riding around in my dad's truck, going up to the High Rock, or it's just such vivid memories of that. Yeah, and sure. That's just something you'll never forget, right?
Those guys are the soundtrack of my life, and all 3 of them are very unique. Ken Squier is very articulate, very eloquent in his delivery.
Yeah. He has an understanding of the English language like nobody on the planet.
Yes. Right. I would say you're a lot like Eli in a sense that you're both bigger than life, and you just boom, you bring the energy. But the thing I love
kind of like
Barney,
E.Z. Smith.
Yeah, and thing
get off the field, EZ. I remember EZ. I covered some of those football games when EZ.
That's another whole show.
Yes, it is.
But Barney Hall, in my opinion, is the ultimate of ultimates. I know that he didn't do the crossover to TV not like Ken Squier did,
No.
but he was one of us, and he didn't get excited.
No.
He had the same delivery, and it was always very direct and just whatever. You just authoritative yet calming at the same time.
We MRN, we have paid for the rights to be the voice of NASCAR. We are not the voice of NASCAR. Barney Hall was the voice of NASCAR. I've shared about how blessed my career has been, and I, with all three of those guys, I've had unique experiences where I've been placed with them. Maybe the single biggest stick of luck that I had was MRN was still based in Daytona Beach, Florida. Barney was here in Elkin, North Carolina. And Barney was getting up there in years, and they made the decision that they wanted Barney to fly on the private charter planes, one of the charter planes that fly out of Concord Regional Airport here, or whatever that city is down the road. We can't say Concord anymore. The regional airport.
That town on the other side of 85.
Yeah, the other side of 85. The regional airport. And so I'll never forget, they called me from down at MRN, and they said, hey, we got something we want to propose to you. And usually when someone proposes something to you, it's like, okay, here's the good side, where's the downside? And they said, we're putting Barney on the charter. Winston Kelly can't do it because Winston at the time was still with Duke Power. So Winston sometimes would have to, Winston could do it some weeks and couldn't do it. We would like you to fly on the charter with Barney every week and just make sure you get the rental car and get Barney back to the airport and everything else. And I'm like, okay, where's the downside of it? And they're like, and it's like, and then the conversation goes, and I'm like, that's it? And they said, yeah, no, that's what we run. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? So for 2 or 3 years, about probably 2.5 years, I would go to the Concord airport and I'd get on the plane. Barney'd be sitting there. We'd sit next to each other and we would just chit chat on the way there. And Barney had the favorite restaurants in town. Thursday night, we did, we catfish in Alabama all the time. I'd sit down on the plane. He always called me boy. Boy, I think you and I need to go to catfish tonight. I think we need to do this. And I would sit on the plane. We'd get in the rental car. We'd check in the hotel. We'd go to dinner. And I got to learn all the stories. Here's where the professional part of that was. Barney would say to me, boy, we'd get back to the hotel. Boy, what time's that garage open tomorrow? I said, Barney, garage opens at 7 o'clock. Guess you and I better be leaving this lobby at 6:30. And we would leave, and Barney and I would drive in. Friday, everyone else would arrive, so my task of tending to Barney was lessened then because everyone, he was part of the crew. And then Sunday night, I would grab and get to the airport. But as I spent those 3 or 4 hours in the garage on Friday mornings, you'd walk around the corner, and over sitting in the corner is Barney Hall leaning up against the tires with anybody and everybody in the sport. I mean, you look, he's over there with Glenn Wood. You look the next time, he's over there with Dale Earnhardt Jr. Wow. I come around the corner, he's over there in the corner talking to Jamie McMurray. And Barney, his garage ethic was, Barney taught me so much, and Barney taught me just how to manage this business and how to manage this business. But his work ethic and his garage ethic was absolutely incredible. I actually went up to Elkin, went to the gravesite where Barney is the spring of this year. I hadn't been up there since his service, since his passing 6 years ago, or maybe even longer ago when that was, and there were stories in that garage area that were meant to be told, and there were stories in that garage area that were never meant to be told. And I can 100% promise you that every one of those stories that was not told was in that he's in a tomb actually up there. He's in an area that's stacked up, and every one of those stories, he just taught credibility. Barney had one mantra: A, does it need to be said, and B, am I the one that needs to say it? Mm-hmm. And boy, I'm telling you what, when you look at life, when you look at set racing aside, when you look at our social media, when you look at where we are, when we want to fire off a tweet or fire off something on Facebook, does this need to be said? And do I need to be the one in saying it? There is rarely a race broadcast that goes on. There's rarely interviewing drivers and stuff. Okay, do I need to be the one to interview this driver about this? And I'm telling you, that has served me well. So I'm just so fortunate. Barney Hall, wow. Barney Hall is as glowingly as you spoke about him. I got to travel with him and do it, and it is 100-fold of the way you talk. That's awesome. He lived it. He absolutely did. Hence the biggest award in all of motorsports is the Squier Hall Award for the Hall of Fame. You know, Barney is named for the biggest award in the sport.
agree.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been talking about some good broadcasters, but we got a connection that we're kind of overlooking. Ned Jarrett was a good broadcaster.
Yes, he was.
And we know Ned as a race car driver and a dadgum good race car driver, but Steve, you probably know him better as a broadcaster. And every time I'd go to Ned to ask him a favor to do a ball game with me or whatever, he was the first one there.
Ned was an MRN guy that got the gig with ESPN. And it's great, Steve, that you brought this up because we just lost Ned here within the last couple of weeks. And Ned, Gentleman Ned, was I don't know if it was a marketing piece because we probably didn't have marketing pieces back then, but it was just a description of his life. He was an absolute gentleman. I never got to see him race, and I never even got to see him when he promoted Hickory. When I knew him, he was the guy on MRN's World of Racing. You know, every morning radio stations all across America would get the Ned Jarrett MRN World of Racing. What's going on in the world, whether it was a topic of the week, topic of the day, and Ned Jarrett would do that. Ned has an incredible career as a pit road reporter for MRN. Ned has the most famous pit call in the history of MRN.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you, and I was going to ask you if you've ever given one.
I've been close to that, but I've not done that. Ned Jarrett and I forget. I think it was Martinsville or North Wilkes-Barre. It was a short track, and Ned needed to use the facilities. He had to go to the bathroom. And he goes to the bathroom, and someone comes down pit road, and they were not aware that Ned was not out on pit road. And Ned, from the men's room, standing there doing his business, could hear the air guns, and he called the 4-tire pit stop for that driver.
Wow.
And he called it from the men's room. He did. So I've had a couple of times where I'd get on the two-way, talk to our producers, say, we almost had a Ned Jarrett call there. Almost had a Ned Jarrett call. But Ned he had such an, but again, that's part of the passion and the understanding of the sport. To my knowledge, it wasn't until afterward when Ned told them where he was that anybody even knew the difference of it.
Wow,
that's a pro right there.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, it really is. So Ned, yeah, exactly. And Ned, and the thing of it is, Ned, I think Ned probably ascribed to a very similar to Barney Hall in the you never heard Ned. It was never bringing the dirt out about anybody, and I'm sure Ned knew it in the garage area. I mean, everyone did, but Ned was always probably that. Doesn't need to be said. And I don't know this for a fact, but I need to say it. Ned and Barney were very, very close, so I'm sure that they were the same. And then the good news for a generation of fan is that Ned was able to get tied up with Bob Jenkins and Benny Parsons on ESPN.
Oh, yeah.
And so while his driving career had long ended, a whole new world of NASCAR fans realized that Ned Jarrett, and then you start, oh, wait a minute, he drove also? And he really did. But yeah, Steve, you're absolutely right. Ned Jarrett, when you look at the Mount Rushmore of broadcasters, Ned Jarrett certainly in that conversation, if not on that mountain, that's for sure.
Yeah, Ned Jarrett was truly a gentleman. If he said it come from the heart, and he meant what he said. One famous cause was in the Daytona 500, 93. It was Dale Jarrett racing Dale Earnhardt for the win, and the producer recognized what's going on, and he backed out. He said, Ned Jarrett, you take the mic and you call him home as a son, not as a broadcaster. And Ned Jarrett did a good job with that.
Yeah.
And then after the fact, Dale Jarrett won the race that afternoon. Yeah. After the fact, Ned Jarrett felt bad about it. Yeah. He thought he threw Dale Earnhardt under the bus. And it wasn't but just a couple weeks after that, we had Dale Earnhardt Day in Kannapolis, and Ned Jarrett was one of our guests. And we saw Ned Jarrett walk up to Dale Earnhardt and apologize for his broadcast that day. And Dale Earnhardt said, don't you worry about it. He said, I'm a daddy too. And that was one of Ned Jarrett's claims to fame, but he's got a bunch of them. Yeah, he was involved in the wreck over at Charlotte that took the life of Fireball Roberts. And he tells that story. And I don't see how he can tell that story without shedding a tear, but I've heard him tell that story. But
I think that wreck isn't that wreck the reason that both he and Junior Johnson retired pretty much in their prime?
It probably had a lot to do with it. The one reason Ned Jarrett retired was his second wife, Martha. That's Patty's and Dale Jarrett's and Glenn's mother. She told Ned, if you win the second championship, I want you to hang it up. I want you to quit racing. And at the age of 34, he won his second championship, and that was his last race.
Well, so when we started talking about having this show today, talking to you, and you were so graciously invited Steve, and you graciously accepted the offer to come, was the fact that we want to talk about Ned Jarrett and, of course, Kyle Busch, since we've lost both of those here in recent weeks. But Ned Jarrett specifically because there's another Kannapolis connection and to Ned Jarrett. And that was my great uncle. Bud Allman was his crew chief, head mechanic when he won the championship in '61. And I brought some pictures of some of Ned's cars. It's got mechanics Bud, John, and Johnny on the side. And
gosh, that's awesome.
And here's another picture of Ned, of Ralph Earnhardt, Ned Jarrett, and Dink Widenhouse here. And then I've got another picture of them somewhere. And then brought a couple of my slot cars that I had done over the years. My dad and I had built those, and because of that connection. And Bud was also Bobby Isaac, Junior Johnson. Of course, he worked with Ralph, David Pearson. He worked for all of them, and he's buried at the Hickory Speedway beside of Bobby Isaac because they were really close. And Ned was. I've heard Ned Jarrett my whole life because my grandmother used to talk about them and Bud and all this stuff. And so it holds a special place in our family's history, not only this building and all the things that happened here, but that's a whole nother side of that. And, of course, Bud was from Kannapolis and lived in Newton for many years after that. So
I think that's the amazing part is you don't have to go too far in the motorsports world to find those connections and to find those combinations and how he ties into you and how he ties into you and how he ties into you. And that is fascinating with Bud there with that. And those old school mechanics, oh my gosh. You want to talk, Steve talked about landing with the bag of ice. You want to talk about old school mechanics pulling some tricks. Holy cow. They can make those cars go around the racetrack that'll make today's engineers just scratch their head and wonder how they did it. It's amazing.
There's a series of 4 books that's written by Smokey Unick. Boy, that's a good read. If you're into racing at all, that's a good read. I've got a set of it, so it's out for loan if you need it.
That's how to work the gray areas.
Yeah. There's I've got a picture of Bud. I think it's hanging up over there on the top row of pictures, but it's Bud and my pawpaw and another guy that's standing beside him, and Bud's got a cigarette in his mouth, climbing up in top of the engine. He always had a cigarette, back in the day. That was the way it was. It didn't matter about gas or anything. Heck with it.
Yeah, and Ryan, when you called me, you said, let's talk a little bit about Ned Jarrett. That's the reason I brought it up earlier. But you also mentioned Kyle Busch, and I thought, oh my gosh, Kyle was after my time. I'd already gotten out of the racing industry, and I don't think I've ever interviewed Kyle Busch. So I thought, I don't have anything to say about Kyle other than what you've seen on television. You're a Kyle fan, or you wasn't a Kyle fan. So I thought, shoot, I'm going to call Steve Post, because Steve Post will light us up about Kyle Busch.
Yeah. I have a lot of memories with Kyle. The latter years are just absolutely special because it's more father to father with Kyle as Brexton was racing. The early memories of Kyle, one of my things with interviewing drivers are I am not personally offended when a driver is mad after a race. My favorite era of covering this sport was the old days in the Truck Series when you had Hornaday, Jack Sprague, Todd Bodine, and Mike Skinner. You never had a happy one of them. Sometimes in Victory Lane they weren't happy. Okay, so the fact that Kyle Busch would not win a race and get out of the car and give me short answers, be surly, or just walk away, never took it personally. Never bothered me. And we always had a great rapport, great relationship, because just when you'd have those bad interviews with him, when you'd catch him on a good day, man, he would give you some wisdom. He would give you the way his brain worked was absolutely amazing. He was so savvy, so smart. So smart behind the wheel of a car, going down the backstretch as a $190, thinking about what this guy's thinking, what that guy's thinking, what this guy's thinking, and that guy's thinking, which is why he became one of the absolute best, because he understood the mindset of a racer, and he understood the mindset of he doesn't want to lose, he doesn't want to lose, he doesn't want to lose, and I don't want to lose. How are we going to solve this? And more times than not, in a scenario like that, he solved it to his favor, and he did that. But where things evolved with Kyle, with me, was as Brexton started running some dirt track races. One of the other things I do in my spare time is I do a sprint car show called Wing Nation, where we covered wing sprint car racing. And while Brexton and Kyle never made it, I also do some track announcing out at Millbridge. But as Kyle evolved in dirt track racing, it was fascinating because his stated goal when he started was to understand this to help Brexton. Mm-hmm. Okay? I am 100% convinced that the racer in him, the stated goal was still to help Brexton, but the stated goal was to beat every one of these other race car drivers in these cars, even though some of them have 25 years of experience running dirt tracks, and I've got 16 races.
Right.
He was that racer, and man, did he put his heart and soul into understanding dirt track racing. You would see him, you'd mention a sprint car driver, Legends, and he'd be like, I always wanted to meet him, or, yeah, I talked to him on the phone 2 weeks ago. And just trying to understand it, he had such a passion for it. And then where that passion would pass on to Brexton was an absolutely beautiful thing. Brexton, I probably have announced as many of Brexton races as anybody has through Millbridge and through the summer shootout now. Brexton, I saw him one night at Millbridge where he got shuffled out of line and got on the outside. And literally, I think he went back to third or fourth spot. And there was still a number of laps left in the race. The next lap, he was a half a car length ahead, further ahead of where he was before. And I'm standing there watching. The next lap, he was another half a car length. And then he's up along the second place guy. And he's along the third place guy. And the kid's out there just grinding on the outside.
Just like his dad.
Just like his dad, exactly. And I said something to Kyle afterward. He said, yeah, he did good. He did real good. You know, Kyle had the wherewithal so that they had all the telemetry. They had all the videos. They had everything. I would do it for my kid. You would do it for your kid. Everyone would do it for their kid. He had it. Having it and understanding it and applying it are two different things. Yeah. And I remember that night Brexton won by a half a car length at the finish line. And I think the way he did it made Kyle so proud because it was just a grind it out. And just as you mentioned, just like his dad, man, Kyle, I'll tell you, he would wear you out, and it was will, it was grit, determination. And I see some of that in Brexton. Yeah. He's young, he's a kid. Well, obviously a lot has gone on in his life, but I'm telling you, just watching him, there was a lot of time where Kyle, he made Kyle proud, and you know that's where the dad portion of it came in, and you understand, and you see that as a dad, just tragically losing him, just absolutely awful, tragically losing him when and how we did it. Just amazing, but what a huge impact on the sport. I mean, when you have everybody saying we need to amend the rules of the Hall of Fame to put him in next year, you're pretty special. You know, they haven't amended the rules for Jimmy Johnson. They didn't amend the rules. They Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty were going to get in early. They didn't amend the rules for Jimmy Johnson. He had to wait his turn.
That's right. Jeff Gordon, too.
Jeff Gordon had to wait his turn. But literally talking about amending the rules, what happened with Kyle is he came in as a cocky, snot-nosed kid from Las Vegas, and there was a lot of people that didn't like him. And then he made another fatal mistake. He went to Toyota, and there was another group that didn't like him. But over the course of time, and I think Brexton really helped this a lot, he became beloved at the end. He became respected. You don't do it for as long as he did it and do it as successful as he did without getting respect. Yes. You know, we forgot about that night in Richmond when he dumped Dale Earnhardt Jr. Now I brought it up, so we'll get started on that path. But it became that because it was racing.
Yes.
The relationships he had with Dale Earnhardt Jr., the relationship he had with Kevin Harvick, people that he had dusted up, but they could sit down and talk about it.
Right.
And I just think Kyle, when Kyle passed, again, tragically at 41 years old, he had grown into a beloved figure in the sport. And that's tough to do when you come in as the bad guy, when you're the villain for years and years. And it was an amazing journey for Kyle Busch. It really was.
Well, and he was able to drive everything he ever sat behind. There was not just one little, it was not only he could drive a truck or he could drive a car, he could drive it all. It didn't matter.
Raw talent.
And just absolute raw talent. And, and there's been a lot of comparisons made to Earnhardt and he didn't win as many championships as Dale did, and he wanted to win as many races as Dale did. Yep. He actually wanted to win 77.
Yep.
But he didn't. But the determination, the drive to win was was pretty much the same thing. I mean, there was nobody else out there currently that had that same drive that he had.
I think where the comparisons are good. I am wore out with the Dale Earnhardt comparisons with Kyle and with Carson Hocevar. I'm wore out with those comparisons. But you hit on Ryan. You hit on the point that they are comparable with. It is that drive and that determination.
Right.
And just that drive and determination. It is an elite talent. It is elite talent. Hey, Chris, you covered. We've all covered football players. It is an elite talent. There is no mistake that these drivers are where they're at on Sunday afternoon. And then when you get to the Dale Earnhardt, the Kyle Busch, the Jimmy Johnson, the Jeff Gordon, the Tony Stewart level, when you get to that level, that is the nth degree of elite talent.
Yes.
And Kyle Busch was in that category. And so your point is spot on, Ryan, and that was the drive and determination and the I'm not going to finish second today.
Yes.
How many times do you see Dale Earnhardt racing on the racetrack? I'm not going to finish second today.
Yeah.
How many times do you see Kyle Busch running on the racetrack? I'm not going to finish second today. I'll tell you another driver, and his personality was totally different. Jimmy Johnson in his prime, I'm not going to finish second today. Jeff Gordon, I'm not going to finish second today. And man, that's to be celebrated.
Yes.
When you have someone like that, that's to be celebrated.
And that's what puts people in seats.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And you could be wearing the white hat or the black hat,
That's
but
right.
that I am not going to finish second today attitude
right.
is so amazing. It really
Somebody has to be the villain that and that's just the way it is.
Yep,
I mean, and
absolutely.
And that's when you can see that on the track, and no matter how bad the car is, no matter how good the car is, you're not giving up, and it's that refuse to lose mentality that's meant to be.
Yes.
When we talked about doing the show, it's worth celebrating. I mean, it's a sad time, obviously, but it's worth celebrating. That is a big part of what made the man that drove the black number 3.
Sure.
Who he was and what was revered so much, and it's the same thing. I mean, it's that determination is where it's at.
Yes.
And that's what hopefully Brexton he's learned enough, and he can carry that forward, and we can keep supporting him.
Absolutely. Steve, but we started the show, and I kind of asked you about the state of NASCAR today.
Yeah, sure.
But you kind of broke the ice when you started talking about Brexton Busch. Let's bring in Kevin Harvick's son, Keelan. Kyle Larson's got a son, Jamie McMurray. I mean, there's a lot of those young men that you see at Millbridge that are tearing it up. I think the future of NASCAR is really, really good.
I just don't think we have enough seats. I
agree.
think that's what it is. And I think because it's funny because we went years and years ago where every kid wanted to be the next Jeff Gordon. Now every kid wants to be the next Kyle Larson. It's not going to be long. It's going to be the next whoever it is. Yeah. And so in the next tier, we have the racers like Corey Day that's doing so well in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Lane Riggs, the second generation racer, Scott Riggs' kid, Lane Riggs in the Truck Series doing a great job. And then you go down to this next level, and my gosh, it is absolutely amazing. We had 175 entries at the summer shootout. Millbridge on a Tuesday night, even the younger kids, has 100 entries on a Tuesday night of all kids racing. And yes, Brexton Busch is racing there. And yes, Owen Larson and yes, Keelan Harvick are racing there. They're not winning every week. And to me, what I find fascinating is how they navigate this, if they choose to. But I think it's also going to be interesting to see what that name of that person is. We got one in the wings right now, Gavin Boschel, I'll talk about Gavin. Brent Cruz just got the ride with Joe Gibbs Racing. Denny last week let it slide that Brent's going to be the heir apparent to the 11 car. Brent's one of our Millbridge kids. And I'm telling you what, it didn't take you more than one night out at Millbridge to say, man, that Cruz kid, he is really, really good. Yeah. We had an ARCA race at Pocono on Friday afternoon, and there's a kid named Gavin Boschel. Again, that's not a Harvick, that's not a Busch, that's not a Larson. That last name is Boschel, and he was in an ARCA race, his 4th or 5th ARCA race, and all of a sudden people are saying, man, did you see what that Boschel kid did? See what it is? He's another Millbridge graduate. So it is such an exciting time in the sport because I think what's exciting about it is because we have those connections with Owen Larson, with Keelan Harvick, with Brexton Busch. But you go and you watch these races and it's like, man, I'll tell you what, Keelan is good, but so is that kid. Yeah. So is this kid. And I just think it's absolutely amazing. It really truly is.
Wow. That's awesome. Steve Gantt, well, he'll attest to this. When you've covered high school football as long as I have, and every now and then you'll see somebody come along like Nick Maddox. He's different. Todd Gurley. You look at him. I mean, I've been looking at athletes forever, and then you see a Todd Gurley walking around. Like, man, that guy's just a little bit different. It sounds the same when you see these guys come through Millbridge. You can just tell if they've got that it factor.
Yeah, Steve, because you guys did some stuff with the baseball team here in Kannapolis as well, and the next thing you know, the guys are playing for the Braves and everything. So you could just tell the difference.
Yeah, we did TV shows, and a lot of people in the area don't even know that the Rollins guy, he left here and went with Philadelphia, and then that very next year he was MVP of the World Series. We had another kid that played here, played baseball in Kannapolis, Williams. Mm-hmm. He was running back at Texas. He won the Heisman Trophy Award. But we had some great athletes that come through, and over the years of covering football, we could name Lance Smith, we could name Mike Morton, we could name Tommy Barnhart. We saw Corey Alexander in Mooresville, one of the best. McClendon down in Albemarle, one of the best. But there's a lot of talent that's come from right here in Cabarrus County, and we could go into baseball now. There's some Seeger kids here in Kannapolis that are lighting it up in baseball, but a wealth of talent. Not only racing, not only football, not only baseball, but a lot of kids coming up.
Fascinating how talent, real elite talent, shines out. It really
absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Well, cool, man. Steve, I appreciate you coming. Steve, it's your third time. You've got the lifelong invite, and you as well, Steve Post.
Oh, great. No, I appreciate it. It's always good to talk. I know when Steve talked about coming up and talking about Ned Jarrett and Kyle Busch, I was like, yeah, I'll talk about those guys all day long. And then I saw pictures of where we were doing it, and I'm like, well, this is really cool. Yes. And then I ran into a mutual friend of all of ours, Mike Herman, last night at the airport. Yeah. And Mike Herman says, dude, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. And by the way, I'm just warning you, Mike's got all kinds of story ideas, so show ideas here too. So you'll hear from Mike as well. But no, real honor to be here. As I started with this, really cool to be able to hook up with my buddy Steve here again and catch up and make sure it's not 5 or 6 years before our next conversation. And so really neat to hang out with you guys, and great to hang out here today in Kannapolis.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you very much.
And maybe you can come every year and give a NASCAR update for the
gladly do that.
You come anytime you want.
Anytime.
I'll give you my seat right now.
No.
We might have to turn the microphones down.
Turn the volume down a little bit.
Now, let me ask you this: you play any pickleball?
I do not play. Okay, so I have one pickleball experience. Okay, I'm not allowed to play pickleball anymore. Motor Racing Outreach did a pickleball tournament, pit road pickleball on the front stretch of Charlotte Motor Speedway, and I was going to be part of a team of pickleball players there. Okay. I have zero athletic ability at all, okay? And for whatever reason, I started to get comfortable playing pickleball that day. And I did not do anything prior to that day, okay? So I'm running here and I'm running there, and for whatever reason, I thought one was within reach, and it wasn't in reach.
Oh, boy.
And if there was an MRN reporter there, we would have had a good trouble call. Because on pit road, I went tumbling, and my friend Erin Evernham. Erin is Ray Evernham's wife. She was there, and she tells the story great. She said, I looked down and there's people all around somebody down there, and then the ambulance goes down the front stretch, and she says, "What idiot!" Just absolutely hurt themselves. I had a skinned up knee, skinned up arm. I didn't break anything. I was skinned up from. I really skinned up and everything. I get home, and my daughter, she's 27 now, 28 now. So she was probably 5 or 6 years ago now. She sits down with me, and I had just started running. I just started doing more fitness things. She says, "Dad," she says, "I love that you're feeling more fit. I love that you've lost all the weight you've lost. I love that you are feeling better than you've ever felt before. But you don't need to be diving for pickleballs on asphalt ever again." So I'm not sure I'm allowed to do pickleball.
You just need to stick
But if I am, you guys have a partnership,
we
right?
would love to get you on the court.
Okay.
Go over here to our friends at the Carolina Pickleball Center on Chipola Avenue, Chipola Street, and tell them we sent you, and they'll hook you up.
Okay.
Well,
are the courts soft? That's what I want.
They're soft-ish.
or just stick to doing Ned Jarrett calls from pit road instead of doing pickleball.
How about if we play, you come and give the commentary?
That's exactly
that would be good.
We have a bunch of friends that play pickleball. Chris Wilner, one of my cohorts, and they play all over the country. And what a great sport! I mean, it's a phenomenal sport. It really
taking over.
Maybe I don't need to be diving for pickleballs anymore. So,
oh man, Steve Gantt, we appreciate you, brother.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it.
Honored to be
Thank
here.
you so much.
And Big Dave, you did good back there, man. You've kept us sounding good, and you've just fit in perfect.
I appreciate that.
Big
I'm
Dave
excited
Sports
to be
Center.
part of the crew.
Any parting words of wisdom?
Go Canes.
All right, there you go.
I don't know
What's that
was
again?
coming.
What's that again? Go Canes.
Go Canes.
What do you
Is there a game?
Raising
somewhere?
Cane's. Isn't that the place to eat at?
Ron, I might have to drag you up to Raleigh at some point and take you to a game and indoctrinate you. Maybe a little
Maybe
bit.
a little.
Maybe a little bit.
All right.
I thought you were tearing something up.
It's Dale colors. It's red and black and silver.
I know.
So it
Sorta.
fits perfectly.
Not bad.
Sort of. Well, what's for supper? You want
I already ate.
Shrimp.
You can, yes. Shrimp and steak.
Whatever's not going to flare up his gout.
Yeah.
The gout.
The gout.
Hey, we got my man Leighton over there. Any parting words for you? You got the
The
stage.
man of many words.
You've got the stage with Steve Post, and you don't want to say nothing.
I mean, this can't get any bigger.
Steve,
Yep.
appreciate both
Thank
of
you.
y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoy
All right,
Thanks,
guys,
guys.
that's number 71 in the books. Go
Thanks
check
it.
us out. K-Town Connection, all of our socials, YouTube. Anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Go buy a Ford from Hilbish. 3 for Dale.
That was good.
It was fun.
Yeah, that was great, man.
That's cool. That was
That
fun.
was-
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I really did. Love talking about racing, that's for sure.
The Carolina Pickleball Club is a premier organization dedicated to providing a welcoming and competitive environment for pickleball players in Kannapolis. They are passionate about promoting the sport among seasoned players and beginners alike, offering skill-based competitions that challenge and inspire. Go visit our friends at the Carolina Pickleball Club, 724 Chipola Street in Kannapolis, and tell them the Rough Talk Cousins at the K-Town Connection sent you.